Welcome back to Premier Challenge, Gym Challenge number 15. I'm Dennis Geisler. With me, Arnie Wolf on a surprise bye in round number 2.
So I'm here to cast for the round while still playing in the tournament.
In any case, round number 2, you've got Kim Gomez and Tony Cornejo, both at 0-1, looking to keep their top cut hopes in a little bit better of a spot. Kim with Walking Wake, Whimsicott, Fluttermane, Ogerpon Hearthflame, Raging Bolt, and Landorus Incarnate. Tony with Ursaluna Blood Moon, Ogerpon Wellspring, Fluttermane, Farigiraf, Entei, and Urshifu Single Strike.
So this is a very interesting team because on one hand we have Hyper Offense, which has been kind of the star of this format so far. Walking Wake, Ogerpon, Raging Bolt, Flutter, Landorus, all 5 of those are Hyper Offense attack commands, which Tony's side is kind of there to counter with that Ursaluna Blood Moon and Farigiraf combo. Not to mention, obviously, Thunderclap. Priority is incredibly popular right now. So, like, Thunderclap on Raging Bolt is affected there. Tony's got 2 different options. You've got that Trick Room set with the Farigiraf and Ursaluna, or you can go fast. This Flutter main does have booster energy. Good chance it is speed, and then you also have Extreme Speed. Entei, you've got Sucker Punch on that Urshifu, so it's like you've got a few different priority options as well. And it's tough if you're a Kim right now because you don't know what the lead Tony is going to go for is going to be, because there's so many different ones.
Yeah, there are a lot of really flexible options there. It is a Focus Sash Urshifu Single Strike, not the Choice Scarf that we've seen a decent amount of, so it's a little bit more flexible, a little bit more defensive, has a couple more options.
We're going to get right into it. I think for Tony, honestly, if you can... I wouldn't be surprised to see Ogerpon and Farigiraf to get the Trick Room going right away, especially looking at the Pokemon on Kim's side. You do kind of neutralize a lot with Ogerpon. You Wake, Whimsicott. However, you do have to watch out for that one first. And if you partner that with something that can at least do decent damage on Farigiraf, that's gonna hurt. But you can still get your Trick Room up really reliably with that lead, Tony. And we are going to see that Farigiraf Ogerpon lead.
It's the Farigiraf Ogerpon indeed. Raging Bolt and Whimsicott on the other side. It does mean that Manual Sunny Day can get up. Raging Bolt's so tall.
It's literally...
He's just such a tall guy.
I think here the interesting one for me is that Farigiraf's Terra Fairy is booming. So if you do not go for a Draco Meteor on the correct slot, it's going to hurt. I think the Draco Meteor onto Ogerpon is the best bet, and to swap your Whimsicott into something. You can set up the manual terrain boost, but I feel like there's nothing you can do to stop Trick Room. And so the best bet is to go into something that can just kind of stop that from getting up, especially with Blood Moon or Ursaluna looming in the back, and you've got an electric type on the field that's Terra Electric. That's scary.
Is already going to go for that Terrastal. It will be the Terra Electric on the Raging Bolt, so a lot of damage being threatened right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad choice at all because you do not risk that Draco Meteor drop. However, the unfortunate part here is you have to burn your Terra, and again, you're not immune to that Blood Moon Ursaluna, which is most likely going to come out. But Sunny Day is going to give the boost, however, so now I think it comes down to, can Kim's team survive 5 turns in Trick Room with a Blood Moon Ursaluna in the back? And there is that Thunderbolt connecting with the Ogerpon. It does not do enough damage to pick up the KO. That is a bulky Ogerpon.
That is a really bulky Ogerpon. I am really surprised it did not pick up that KO. That is a very specially defensive Ogerpon. Ogerpon does have some good stats there. That's a neutral hit. I am honestly really surprised.
I am too, but honestly, I feel like if you're Tony, you kind of wanted that Ogerpon to go down so you could get your Blood Moon Ursaluna in and just start going for Hyper Voices. But, you know, this is not terrible either way. You have the sun up, so obviously Ogerpon isn't going to be able to do much, but you can go for a double target on either Whimsicott or Raging Bolt. Farigiraf's Psychic Noise can definitely help there, and so just a double up would be nice if you kind of want to get one of these 2 out, but I think personally best bet is to go ahead and just still switch into that Ursaluna Blood Moon, specifically the Farigiraf slot.
We'll have to see. Either way, it would be able to block that Raging Bolt. The Psychic Noise, one of the new moves we've got here. It stops healing, which won't really do a whole lot to Raging Bolt right here, but nice move that gets a lot of value in a couple of different ways, especially for a more supportive mon. It doesn't go down!
And activates that Citrus Berry. which means we are going to see what this Ogerpon does. Again, if you're Tony, this is both good and bad. First, you do get the Ivy Cudgel chip, which is going to do a decent amount, even though it's in the sun. But the hard part is you are wasting Trick Room turns, and you have now just 3 to go, which means essentially one more turn, because Ogerpon and Raging Bolt both have protecting moves, so they can double protect, or stagger their protect, so where it works. If you read correctly, you may be able to stall the Trick Room if you're Kim right now. So right now, for Tony, I say follow me, swap out that Farigiraf into Ursaluna, and just have some fun. Nope.
The Raging Bolt protect.
And there is a double protect
The
there.
double protect here.
Yeah,
so
this would have been a really nice switch into Ursaluna.
Indeed, it would have been. Instead, it's just a follow me, which means the Ogerpon is just going to sit there. And the Psychic Noise, which will not connect, would have aimed onto the Earth Flame.
I think that was, it's a decent play, especially because that does have Horn Leech and therefore can get some healing in. But I do think at the end of the day, the better move is to get that Ursaluna
You
in.
gotta get rid of the Raging Bolt as well.
Yeah, there's really not much. I mean, you could double target the Raging Bolt, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him switches right now.
I'll say that the good thing for Tony is that even though you're stalling out your own Trick Room, you're also stalling out the Sun. We're not even 110% sure that Ursaluna's in the back. We're probably pretty sure, but
it's a good chance.
but it does mean that the extra damage from the Sun is getting stalled out and you're not getting hit as hard.
Yeah.
Even though it's still a rough spot to be in because there's still like 3 full health Pokemon on Kim's side.
Yeah. And we are going to see the Ogerpon swap on out here to Whimsicott. I think that's a decent switch in, actually. Especially because this Whimsicott can set up a Tailwind for when Trick Room ends, and if you are able to pick up the KO, which I think Kim's going to go for right now, on the Farigiraf, there's no means of setting that Trick Room back up. Yep,
yeah. Now the priority is blocked, or the priority is no longer blocked, I guess you could say.
This is a very good position for Kim. The Horn Leech isn't going to pick up KO. It does heal, because it didn't get Psychic Noise. No, but this is a great position for Kim right now, because I think you're free to just go ahead and protect or go for a Thunderclap, depending on what you think is safer. There is that Ursaluna, by the way, on Tony's side. But you can go straight up Tailwind right now on Whimsicott. This is the last turn of Trick Room, and there's no means for Tony to reset that, and then you get your speed control and can start sweeping. And one thing we know with Ursaluna Blood Moon it is pretty specially defense weak. And with Flutter Mane and Raging Bolt still on the field, that's going to be very, very nice for Kim.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Kim is fairly free. Tailwind Protect. There's the Raging Bolt Protect. There is the Whimsicott Prankster Tailwind. We've got that back now. Everyone's favorite.
Yup.
Ursaluna's Hyper Voice, obviously not going to connect on the Raging Bolt. Probably will take down Whimsicott. Indeed it will. So there goes the sun setting.
Although I don't
for
think
Kim.
we need the sun at the moment. I mean, you could use Flutter Mane.
Not critical.
No, it's not. And the Horn Leech not going to connect.
Horn Leech, indeed, not going to do anything into that protected slot. There goes the sun. There goes the Trick Room. Raging Bolt no longer has that photosynthesis, or the protosynthesis, excuse me.
I think right now Ogerpon's a really good switch-in. I mean, Flutter's, they're both good switch-ins, but
they're honestly, both decent switch-ins.
I would go for the Ogerpon, because that will allow you to go for a Draco Meteor onto the Ursaluna, and I'm pretty confident that'll do at least enough to KO it. Flutter is not bad either, because you do chip it with Dazzling, or you don't have Dazzling Glaive. That's a little more tricky. Again,
Based your speed.
However you do, this Flutter Mane is probably going to be able to survive even a Blood Moon, depending on its bulk. So I think the play is to go for the Draco Meteor onto the Luna, and just go for a Moonblast onto the Ogerpon, or double target the Ursaluna, hoping that it does. Hoping that the Ogerpon protects, but I still think a Moonblast is safer onto Ogerpon, and then you just go for the Draco Meteor and hope that knocks.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to at least use something. Yeah, there's the Protect from the Ursaluna.
It is the bigger target, so that is a decent Protect there from Tony because of that, but yeah.
And even still, this is a very good turn from Kim. You get the Ogerpon out of the way, you get to see what the 4th Pokemon is, and Raging Bolt is fine. Yeah. And even more than that, Raging Bolt will now be able to Thunderclap whatever comes in, especially if it's like Entei.
Yeah. You don't want it to Shifu. Urshifu is the tough one, and it is the Urshifu.
Yeah.
However, it's still not a terrible position, mainly because Tony had protected. So, Urshifu can go ahead and Sucker Punch one of the 2 Pokemon. If There's a good chance you get rid of this Ursaluna right now. I think if you double target it, go for a Moonblast and a Draco Meteor, that's gonna do enough. Still gotta watch out for that Urshifu, especially because it is Focus Sash. But if it doesn't go for Sucker Punch, you're free to Thunderclap it, and then you break that Focus Sash and basically can pick up the win. But that Ursaluna's bulk is really what's going to be in question, and since the Flutter Mane is Booster Energy Speed, that is something you have to watch out for, because you're not going to be doing as much damage to Ursaluna and be able to pick it up. But we will see what happens here. I think this is an interesting call. Either way, it's tough, because, and we are going to see a Terastral. I believe that the better Terastral... Oh, it is Ursaluna.
Ursaluna, Terra Normal.
I personally like the Urshifu Terra because I think Sucker Punch plus Terra Dark would have been really nice, but this is still not terrible, especially if this Blood Moon Ursaluna lives. It can probably knock out both with... Or knock out this Flutter Mane right now with
It's got some bulk, yeah, and there's no way that Urshifu will drop this turn, so you will still have that Sucker Punch for next turn.
Question now becomes, does this Flutter Mane get one hit KO by Blood Moon?
I think it's gotta.
I think it does with the Terra Normal.
Yeah, especially with like Blood Moon, the move.
Yeah. And the connect,
Hitting with the Mind's Eye onto the Ghost type,
and it does.
Ring the bell, one hit knockout.
Alrighty, now it's an interesting case because you do have to target accordingly, and this is a tough one for Ogerpon. I feel like Kim doesn't really have much of a choice. You have to target onto the Urshifu.
I think you do, and then hope that you take the hit from both of them. You have to take a Sucker Punch from Urshifu and a Hyper Voice from Ursaluna. Yeah?
Hyper Voice is gonna be like... I think you...
It's gonna be really hard to take. I don't think
this Ogerpon's gonna be able to do it. There is the.
I don't think Ogerpon's gonna be able to do it either. It's gonna be close.
Oh, a Detect on Urshifu and a Ivy Cudgel coming out onto this Ursaluna Blood Moon. Okay, it's a double protect. That's fair.
Okay.
Honestly,
cool.
Not bad. Not bad.
No reason not to, I suppose.
Yeah, kind of just see who is going to be targeted. But at this point,
oh, it also gets the Tailwind out of the way.
Yeah.
Not that I think it matters that much. I think Ogerpon still outspeeds Urshifu.
Yeah, I think it does. I think right now, though, you're free. I think it's a nice position for Tony because you kind of just Sucker Punch. If it doesn't work, it's fine. You got Hyper Voice. And then, but that's the tough part is...
Yeah, I think just the threat of... The consistent threat of Sucker...
No Sucker Punch coming out.
No Sucker Punch coming out.
And Ivy Cudgel does not.
Yeah, Ursaluna absolutely eats.
Okay, that's valid.
And Wicked Blow nearly knocks out the Ogerpon. That's an interesting calc. It also meant the Blood Moon is back up with a double protect.
And that really didn't matter because at that point, you just go for either a Wicked Blow, Sucker Punch combo, or Blood Moon one-shots.
Yep.
Really nice playing there by Tony, able to basically maneuver that Ursaluna outside of Trick Room entirely, and was even in a Tailwind scenario, was able to just position himself in a spot where Kim just could not deal with that Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Yeah, the Ursaluna was able to kind of use the threat of how bulky it was to go, okay, yeah, there are other threats around me. I'm launching out damage, but so is the Urshifu, so is the Ogerpon. Like, you're gonna have to deal with somebody. You're gonna be put in this situation, and in that last spot where it was either get Urshifu down to Focus Sash or get some damage but nowhere near enough on Ursaluna, what do you really do in that spot?
Yeah. I think honestly Kim can make an adjustment, and I personally think the better play is to Landorus and Walking Wake. The reason being Snarl exists, and so you can, with the Walking Wake, so you can just Snarl turn one no matter what it is. If it is Flutter Mane, you can switch into something that can take the hit, so Ogerpon, and then Landorus is free to go for a Sancier Storm. So if you're more, don't worry about, like, say that you have the Ogerpon, you can go for an Earth Power, or Sludge Bomb combo, depending on if you want to Sludge Bomb the Ogerpon or Earth Power the Friddraft, because I don't think Tony's going to switch up the lead at all. I think Landorus is kind of the answer to Trick Room, because Friddraft, it's bulky, but with a Snarl and with the Sancier Storms, it means your Landorus and your Walking Wake are going to be able to stay up in Trick Room kind of neutralize whatever comes out, stall out with the protects, and then that's when you can bring in your Flutter Mane and either Raging Bolt or Ogre Pawn to end up sweeping. So Ogre Pawn's not a terrible lead. Instead, I still think it's a bit safer to go for Landorus because the Snarl mechanics and Sandsear Storm getting the double damage or knocking out one or the other, but it's not a bad lead regardless. But I just don't think Tony's going to switch.
Something worth mentioning as well, Kim had a very early Terra in the last matchup, and Tony basically wasted the Terra with the... No, actually, no, I'm thinking of the wrong battle. Kim had a very early Terra, and now that Terra is a little bit more open. The Raging Bolt Electric Terra wasn't worthless, but it didn't get a whole lot done.
Yeah.
And without that, we can see if something like the Ogre Pawn Hearthflame, which gets that attack bonus.
You know,
I'm just making stuff up at this point.
It's this is a good lead, I think, for Kim, because you're free to Ivy Cudgel. I would Ivy Cudgel the first draft, actually, and then just go for a Snarl. I mean, you kind of have to Snarl. The follow me is exactly what I was expecting, so that's why you have to go for the Ivy Cudgel on the first draft. I don't blame Kim also for going for a Swords Dance on this turn. It's smart.
Well, and if you get the Snarl off, you get the Snarl off, Farigiraf won't be doing any damage, Ogre Pawn is literally not doing any damage. It's a pretty good turn for Kim.
It was a really good turn for Kim.
It's really scary to fight against this now. Trick Room does come up.
I think right now, though, Tony's not in a terrible position either, despite the Trick Room being there and the Ogre Pawn threat. Because Walking Wake most likely will go for another Snarl. If you follow me your Ogre Pawn, and then the tough part is, do you now bring in your Ursaluna Blood Moon even at a -1? I personally think it's fine. I think if you bring in your Ursaluna at -1 and then go for Terra Normal, Blood Moon, or Hyper Voice, that's the way to play, and then save your Farigiraf for the back. We're gonna see Psychic Noise with Ogre Pawn, so we can't get Horn Leech.
Yeah, I think the scary thing is just getting, like, just getting launched into orbit by Ogre Pawn at this point.
Yeah.
There's the Horn Leech on the other end.
Going to recover enough. I think this Ivy Cudgel is going to
be heal.
Gonna be able to pick up a knockout on whoever it hits. If Farigiraf just gets chipped enough to activate the berry.
Does indeed. Curious to see. I think it'll still. I think it'll still get hit pretty hard.
They're going to see. There's no.
We can't use
Horn Leech at all. Well, there you go. Psychic Noise mechanics, guys. That was interesting.
That is not an interaction I've seen before. That's huge.
That is going to basically limit you to Ivy Cudgel, Spike Shield, and Swords Dance. And in this case,
that's crazy.
I
didn't know that.
That's fun. Good turn for Tony to stop that.
That's really huge.
I mean, right now, I still think the Snarl from the Walking.
I'm gonna have to rethink bringing Psychic Noise on more stuff.
Yeah, that's very nice.
That's a really good in an Ogre Pawn meta.
And I think right now it's a good spot for Tony, because you do get a, there you go, the Horn Leech. It is a knockout on the Walking Wake. Really, really good spot for Tony, actually, because this Ogre Pawn can only knock out one of the two, and now with the Snarl out of the way from the Walking Wake, you can bring in your Ursaluna Blood Moon and start going for Blood Moons.
You've lost a lot of turns of Trick Room, though.
You do. I think there's 2 turns left, so you get 1 turn for a full power Blood Moon, and at that point, that's enough to knock Kim down to her last 2. We saw what happened in the last game.
Pawn is now no longer prevented from healing. Important.
So Ivy Cudgels are back. There's the Ursaluna. Yep.
There is the Ursaluna.
I think the Hyper Voice is the play here. Looking at
the double protect in here now.
There's not much. One of these 2 is going down before the end of Trick Room.
One of these 2 is going down before the end of Trick Room, but it does mean that 1 turn can be stalled out at least, and even then, if you play around it well, because Hyper Voice, I don't think does enough to knock out one of them, even when single targeted. And if the Ursaluna goes for a Blood Moon into one that's protecting, you're suddenly wasting all your Trick Room.
Yeah.
So it's still a dangerous spot for Tony to be in.
It is. I think the play for Tony here is to go for a Terra Normal Hyper Voice, which
Terra Normal Hyper Voice I think is the best play.
And then I would go for an Ivy Cudgel on the opposing Ogre Pawn. Just get rid of the Ogre Pawn for sure, because it got the Swords Dance boost. That's what's scary.
Yeah,
if you force it to switch
really
out.
Scary.
Yeah, and if you force it to switch out, then you still get that the drop on the attack.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, there's the first protect from Landorus. I assume that the second protect or Spiky Shield is coming out. Yep.
Yeah. So it is the double protect. We do get the Terra Normal scene now from Tony.
And the Hyper Voice
was the Hyper Voice.
I think you just do the exact same thing in this matchup. Because the thing is, if you have... Well, now actually it's an interesting one, because you do have Entei in the back. And with Entei, I think you can extreme speed, so I still think you get rid of the Ogre Pawn. Hyper Voice should put Landorus into extreme speed range. I think. So it's now that case, do you... And then at that point, Ogre Pawn's no longer a threat, because it has no... even neutral moves onto Entei. So I say you still target that right slot. Hope that the Hyper Voice does enough onto Landorus. You could Blood Moon Landorus, make sure it goes down while going for hits on Ogre Pawn, and then you can extreme speed that. As long as one of these two goes down really, or gets chipped enough to go into extreme speed rage for Entei, that's basically it.
I guess my last question, if you're Kim, is a double protect potentially an option? It will be the Ogre Pawn switching out.
I think it's smart, I'm not gonna lie. Color main coming in, that is decent. Can't get extreme speeded by Entei. However,
it might just drop to a Hyper Voice, but
it could. It's not gonna be able to take too much.
Not gonna take too much. It does have that. It's got good special defense.
Oh,
just good enough. Just good enough.
And their Ivy Cudgel going to connect with the Landorus, so make sure no, the Landorus is gone. So this is actually really good spot for Tony.
Yeah, it is a very good spot for Tony. You still don't have the Trick Room now, but everything else is pretty good.
And I don't know.
Ursaluna is still hard to take down. It's the same as game number 1, where there just aren't a lot of things that can hit Ursaluna that hard right now.
And honestly, I don't think it's really even gonna matter, because you can just Hyper Voice again and follow me. And I think that's enough, because this Flutter Mane is booster energy. Best it can do is Moonblast you, and that's if we saw that this Ogre Pawn has insane
it will not take down that Ogre Pawn Wellspring.
So if you just Hyper Voice plus follow me, and then bring in your Entei in the back to Extreme Speed or Sacred Fire, depending on which Pokemon is still up on Kim's side, that's going to do it for this matchup, I think.
Get Kim's Terra Fire for the Ogre Pawn Hearth Flame with that cool big mask.
I mean, it gets the boost, but this would have made a little bit of a difference if Ogre Pawn was faster than Flutter Mane.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's a it's not a terrible decision at this point.
No,
like,
just go for it.
Given the state of the battle, given the state of things.
Last Ditch Terra, I'd go for it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, that Moonblast, it does a decent amount, but because of the follow me, even with the attack boost, this Ogre Pawn's still going to be redirected into Tony's Ogre Pawn. And so Ursaluna's free Blood Moon, or free Hyper Voice probably, but either or, it doesn't really matter. As long as you get
either one. Yeah. At this point, it's going to be very difficult for the Flutter Mane on that low of HP.
Yeah.
And the Hyper Voice anyway. It might knock out both of them, honestly. It's going to be close.
It does.
Does. And Tony Cornejo will win 2-0 in round number 2. He'll move to 1-1. Im will move to 0-2, looking to fight all the way back. That was an interesting one. That was a really fun battle.
It was, and I think it also shows that Ursaluna's a threat.
I'm thinking a lot more about Ursaluna now. Yeah, it was just scary how bulky it was the entire time.
Yeah, for real. I mean,
because
if you don't have a way to beat it, it's Hyper Voice, Blood Moon,
and even if you don't have the Trick Room up, it's still bulky.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to worry about having to invest multiple hits to take it down.
Yeah. Not to mention that you do have Follow Me, so there's even more investment in multiple hits from the Ogre Pawn, which was incredibly bulky. I mean, we saw how much that took from a Sun-boosted Terra Electric Thunderbolt from Raging Bolt.
Yeah.
And it lived it. So
yeah, easily.
That was a very, very entertaining match. Definitely put a new perspective on Blood Moon for me as well.
Very entertaining indeed. We will step aside. We'll be back with round number 3. Well, I'll be back for round number 3. Arnie will be playing in round number 3. Don't go anywhere.